All right. Well, I usually kick off a conversation and then introduce who we have, but I just want to jump right into it and acknowledge we have Mr. Bedros Keuilian in the office today.
Welcome.
On the Earn It All podcast.
Thank you.
Here, my man.
I appreciate the opportunity, fellas. Seriously. I'm a big fan of who you guys are and what you do, and great to be here.
Dude, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We were just talking, we're 10 days post-election.
Yeah.
And I know you've had your own commentary on your podcast about it, but I kind of wanted to dive in a couple of things, especially with your background, with your family, escaping communism, and then becoming a very successful, self-made entrepreneur. We really dodged a bullet about 10 days ago. And I just wanted to really kind of get to your backstory about your family that like literally escaped communism and let people know from your first person perspective what that's like.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've been very open and honest on my show, the Bedros Keuilian show, about my position in terms of choosing Trump over Kamala Harris. And it was never a black versus white, male versus female to me. It was, does the constitutional republic continue, which is what the United States is. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And as a foreigner, I have to know that, because for me to become a citizen, I have to know these things to pass the test. Whereas everyone born here just kind of takes it for granted, I feel sometimes. I wouldn't say everyone, but most people born here.
You know more than most citizens when doing that.
Yeah, you have to, because you have to pass the test, right, to become a citizen. So, but the thing that shows me that we made the right decision as a country in choosing Trump over everything else is you look at how much Kamala raised. $1 billion for her campaign, $1 billion with a B. Yeah. Trump raised, I'm going off memory here, 387 million, right? And then Kamala spent 1.3 billion. She overspent by 300 million. Trump spent 345 million. He underspent. Kamala paid something like 500 million for her staff, and still owes another 20 million to them, and just kind of walked away from it. And this is why her staffers now are kind of leaking everything. So the strategy was just call him Hitler. Their strategy was not, here's our principle, here's our process, and here's our policy. Right. Call him Hitler, let him know that he's the patriarchal enemy, let the world know that he's the patriarchal enemy, and hope this works. So like their staff, who's now hasn't been paid, you know how it is, you don't get paid from something. You're like, hey, I'm going to spill the beans. Yeah. So while she spent over $500,000 on staff, like Trump spent or 500 million on staff. Trump spent, again, the numbers are out there. Pat David has it on his Instagram stories. Trump spent something like 10 or 20 million, right? And so if you just look at how each of them budgeted out their election process and ran it, and you go, just by these numbers and take off the name Trump and Kamala, who do you want to run the country? I would say the one that raised the least amount of money, spent under budget, paid their employees fairly, and doesn't owe money to their employees, versus the one that raised $1 billion, did nothing, is over budget, and still owes 20 million to their employees. And so we chose the right person just based on numbers, all emotions aside. Orange man bad, and whether she's Indian, black, or a unicorn doesn't matter to me. And now I'm an immigrant to this country. In 1980, my family and I escaped the Soviet Union because my dad was a member of the Communist Party. And my brother, who's 14 years older than me, he was about to go into the Soviet Army. And at the time, if you know your history, in 1980, the Russians, the Soviet Union, were fighting Afghanistan. So well before we ever fought them, the Soviet Union was fighting Afghanistan. And my dad was like, the hell if our country of Armenia gets invaded and taken over by the Soviet Union, and now they want to send my soon-to-be 19-year-old son to Afghanistan, and he would see, Russian soldiers coming back with limbs missing, right? And so the goal was like, hey, we're going to escape, and we're going to take our family to the United States for opportunity and freedom. And my dad risked his life. I remember weeks before, because I was 6 years old when we escaped. Weeks before we escaped, there was a knock on the door. It was dark outside, so I don't know what time it was, but it was in the evening. Knock on the door. 2 KGB guys came in, the equivalent of, imagine someone knocking on your door, no warrant or nothing, because in the Soviet Union, there was no warrant required. You just let them in. So imagine 2 FBI dudes knock on your door, walk in, and they go, hey, you have any plans on leaving? No, we don't. Well, do you mind if we look around? Well, sure, go ahead. Man. Right? So my mom, my dad, myself, and my sister, we're all lined up in the hallway. It's an apartment. Everyone lives in, communist housing, right? So we're all lined up. My dad, who speaks Armenian and Russian, he actually speaks 5 languages, but he started speaking to them. My dad's got the gift of gab. And he's like, go ahead, look around here. Why don't you come to this room? Why don't you look in this hallway? He had no evidence that we were leaving, right? So then as they're like, all right, well, fine, thanks, whatever, we'll leave now. My dad goes, listen, you came all this way. There's no point in just leaving. Let's sit down and have some vodka. He put out a bottle of vodka. The three of them sat at the kitchen table while me, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my sister, sat in the living room, and we're like, holy crap. And they got drunk, and my dad sent them off. And 2 or 3 weeks later, we were off to Italy under the guise of we're going on vacation. Right? So we can only leave with 2 suitcases. You have to make it look like you're going on vacation. In Italy, people are like, why don't you go right to America then? Because if you're like, hey, we're going to America, they're like, no, you're not going to the enemy country. But Italy was communist sympathizers. So Italy was on the okay list to go to. Wow. So we went to Italy on vacation. We land in Italy. My dad and my brother march right over to the American consul. And they go, hey, we're refugees. We're political escapees of the Soviet Union. I'm a Communist Party member. Pump me for whatever information you want. And please, please, please send us to the United States, because if you send us back, they'll kill me. And so within 10 days, we were on our way to JFK, from JFK to California, because my dad had a friend of a friend who lived in California, and he let us stay in his little apartment complex, in his apartment, for 30 days. But I share this with you because we lived in Section 8 housing, food stamps, all types of like gang infested parts of Santa Ana, California. And my dad says he would do it over again and over again and over again. He's 91 years old now. He was 45 when he brought us here. And I asked him, Dad, would you do it over again today? I asked him this pre-election, and he said no. I asked him this a week ago when I was on the phone with him, and he said yes. Wow. Simply because Trump is going into office. And I don't care how you feel about Trump personally, how you feel about our country matters more, right? And it shocks me when people were willing to vote for someone, Kamala, because their hate for Trump trumped their love for the country.
Yeah, right.
And so that's that.
What was your dad's rationale and thinking behind that? What got him on the Trump train, essentially?
Well, he just knew that the reason he brought us to this country was for freedom, opportunity. And my dad had always told me, my brother, and my sister, the more people you serve in this country, you come with the serving hand, and the giving hand, the more this country will add to your life. And he saw in the last 10 years specifically, and then the last 4 years more than ever, my dad's very in tune. He's always listening to the Armenian news that translates the American news, right? And he saw very quickly that the noose is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And my dad will openly say, like, hey, we're immigrants to this country. We came in here legally. We spent 10 days in Rome, Italy, getting pumped for information, and then filled out all the necessary paperwork and came under the guise of political asylum. Yeah. Anyone is welcome to this country, but come in here legally so that you can add value to this country. You will value anything that you work for and acquire versus just simply crossing the border and saying, yay, I'm here.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very important for people to realize that wasn't that long ago. And when you tell that story, like, it almost kind of sounds like maybe a World War II kind of Nazi type thing, but no, it was much earlier than that. Bro. It was only 44 years ago or so. You know, and that's wild to think that, like, we're not that far removed from that kind of shit, from that kind of like major government control. And I think that's what people don't realize, like even things like censorship and like this over corrupt spending and like all these things that are happening, that were happening, that is all leading down that path. Will it go that far? I don't know, but that is the direction it was going. So we had to stop that direction and come back, you know, towards liberty, essentially.
Well, it's funny you say that, Justin. You know, Tim, you guys know Tim Kennedy, right? Yeah. So Tim Kennedy helps us run this thing we have called Operation Black Site. So I was like, hey, Timmy, you're all over the map. Give it to me straight. Like the billions of dollars that we're sending to Ukraine, how much makes it to the front line? Because Tim may or may not from time to time end up in Ukraine near the front line. He goes, about 10%. I go, well, what happens to the rest of the billions? He goes, oh, it just washes back to their parliament and back to our politicians, right? Totally. So what a great way to launder money, right? Yeah. Well, we're just trying to keep the Russians from invading Ukraine, because if they do that, next is Poland and next is all of Europe. So we need to fund them. Well, great. Why don't you have all 60 billion go to those people then instead of 10%? Right. Now, one could argue that that's just Tim's perspective, but I think he's got a very good beat on what's happening out there, considering who he is and the rank that he has. But anyways, I'm not even sure if he'd wanted me to share that, but I just did.
Sure.
I don't give a shit.
The people that are going to, argue with him have never been anywhere.
Right.
So perspective is everything. Tim's been all over the world, like you said.
Yes.
And it's, people are going to argue your story, even though it's your story. They're gonna be like, oh, that's not whatever. Right. And
I've been told that I'm sure you came here with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Not from Soviet Union, you don't. Maybe today, because the communist wall has collapsed, but not back then, you don't.
And that's a really good point. Yeah. And, like the name of the podcast and our whole company is Earn.
Yeah.
Earn it all. And like that kind of story is just full of it. Full of the earn, because like you said, you came over here. One, you had to kind of like beg your way out, which is crazy. Because again, that's only in 1980.
Yeah.
But then you got, like you said, you're in Section 8 housing, right? And food stamps and the whole 9 yards. And now you're incredibly in demand entrepreneur and speaker and all these things. And I'm so glad to hear your dad's doing good at 91.
Yeah, man.
How cool is that?
He's doing well. He's doing well.
Yeah, that is awesome. I wanted to read the definition of liberty, because I think this is what your dad wanted. And this is why my wife and I named my daughter, her middle name is Liberty.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views.
Bingo.
And if you think about that story of those guys coming into your house, none of that I just read applied.
Bingo.
Like they were in your shit, like searching your clothes and your suitcases. And if they didn't like what was going on, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. It's funny too, that definition of liberty, a shorter, less eloquent way to say it, it is the absence of slavery.
Yes.
It is the absence of slavery. Because if you asked anyone from either side, left or right, do you think slavery is bad? Yes.
Right.
Are you happy that we've abolished slavery? Yes. Well, liberty is the absence of slavery.
Right.
That's it. Because what slavery does is the opposite of liberty. It enslaves. It forces you to think in a certain way. You're only allowed to have what everyone else has, and that's that. And if you try and escape, well, we're going to have to hang you.
Yeah. And you nailed it. You said you have to think a certain way and you can only say certain things. That's what we were talking about with free speech and censorship.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, that's just trying to, misinformation or disinformation, or it's trying to
hate speech.
Like all that's BS. What they're really doing is they're trying to control what you think.
Yeah.
They're trying to control your mind, and that cannot go to a good place.
Bingo. And by the way, hate should be allowed to be spoken.
Yes.
Our First Amendment is freedom of speech. That includes hate speech. That includes religious speech. That includes political speech. That includes gay speech. That includes capitalistic speech.
Totally.
All speech is allowed to be. The moment we start censoring, we have now torn down or eroded our First Amendment. And if that goes away, then the dominoes begin to fall.
100%. Yeah. Really, like, I think the main thing, I was thinking about, like, what does it really mean that Trump won? Like I'm excited about Doge. I'm excited about, RFK doing his thing. I'm excited about these things. But I think, like, for us and for people in our coaching community, I think all it really means is we are able to get a maximum ROI for our efforts now. But it's still on us. Like nothing is coming like our way, like nothing. Maybe taxes go down a little bit like that, but now we're not talking about that. Yeah. Like, especially if all those of us that are out there working our butts off, trying to be in great shape, leading our families by example, trying to build business, make money, leave a positive impact on the world. I feel like that's really what we have now received from this is a higher ROI than we would have had.
Yeah.
But that's it.
That's exactly it. And like you said, maybe we see a little lowering in taxes now. The people that are going to see the benefits of the Trump administration are, it's going to be us, all of us, but a decade from now.
Yeah.
I'm in the franchising world.
Right.
My biggest business is Fit Body Boot Camp, international fitness franchise. We have hundreds of gyms across the US and Canada, and we're now going into Australia. Awesome. And in the franchising world, the Federal Trade Commission oversees you. We have a compliance officer who sits at our corporate office at HQ, and I pay them to have them make sure that I comply to the Federal Trade Commission standards of franchising, which is a whole different thing.
License first franchise.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I share this with you because in franchising, when we make a move, a franchise is real big. I always liken it to a cruise ship. You start, if we need to go like 3 degrees right, 2 miles from now, we need to start turning whatever it is, the steering wheels or a steering wheel on a cruise ship, whatever it is, we need to start turning now to start going right.
Correct.
3 miles from now. Whereas a speedboat, you can just whip around.
Yeah.
A cruise ship is more like a franchise is more like a cruise ship. And I say that because a country is more like a cruise ship. The things that Trump and this administration, RFK, Vivek, Elon, Tulsi Gabbard, and all these great people that he's putting into place, into different department heads to decrease spending, to improve efficiency, improve health. All these things, we're going to see the outcome of it years down the line, especially if we continue to live out, like we continue to vote the right way. Because in 4 years, if we go back to voting for the other team,
right,
then we just erode all this progress.
There's no point.
Yeah.
Which is why I think we all need to be like vocal now. You know, show what we're excited about. You know, if there's stuff we don't like, we need to be vocal about that as well. One thing I really like about X now is there's so much going on, so much activity. Like when they're even voting for like the Senate chairman, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of people that had an opinion about who it should be. Like Rick Scott got a lot of, a lot of votes or whatever. That got back to Trump. And that's just regular old people out here. That's what's so neat about it. But we have to keep vocalizing that. We have to stay at the edge of the spear, because otherwise, if we go back to the quote silent majority, no, dude, the other people are going to say, well, we're not silent.
Right.
We're loud about everything and we're going to take back over, know? So I feel like this is our momentum. It's in our sails and we have to keep pushing it these next 4 years so we can get 8 and then another 8 and another 8.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even just talking 1 more. I want like 5 more going the right direction.
That's the only way that we do make America great again.
Yeah.
That is truly the only way. And how cool is that, right? When you think about what Elon did, like they're another immigrant who loves his country so much that he's like, he was on Joe Rogan's show saying financially it was the most arduous and difficult business decision he's made to go raise capital from investors and go, your investment's probably going to get paid back to you the slowest ever compared to what you guys invested in Tesla and SpaceX. However, I'm asking you guys to do this and here's why. And they're like, sure enough. And boom, $40 billion later, he buys Twitter, turns it to X, opens up the floodgates and says, hey, there was censorship, there was the FBI telling Twitter employees what they should throttle, what they shouldn't. And now that it's free flowing information, look at this. Information from the masses, from all of us, reach Trump and he's able to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And look, if Trump all of a sudden does turn into a tyrannical, iron-fisted dictator, that same free speech that we have will get him out of office and we'll get someone else better in place. But without free speech, without the freedoms, it's the minority who, with their greed glands in full secretion, begin to overtake the government and overtake the country and do what's best for them and not for us, the masses.
Totally. As much as, we both love what's going on with HHS now, with food quality and water quality and all these things that are going to get us healthy. Cause, we always say like, if without your health, you have nothing.
Yeah.
And so many people don't even know the basics. It's crazy that, to get people in shape, like it's really get them exercising, eating right, hydrating, getting in the sun and sleeping. Like the basics, nobody has really mastered the basics. The 1%, they've mastered the basics. But most people, all these things that RFK wants to do, they've never heard of.
Yep.
So what I'm really hoping what happens over there is that he just makes enough noise to get people to go like, well, maybe I don't like him for whatever reason, but what's going on? What did he say about food? Why are they changing the water? I think that could be a great shift for people to finally be like, okay, maybe I haven't been eating the right way. Maybe there's something I need to do differently for my kids to help grow them healthier, But I really think I'm even more excited about the Doge thing because like you talk about corruption and money laundering in Ukraine and all that. I really think all those millions that are spent on gerbils fighting on cocaine and steroids.
Yeah, I saw that.
And all these things.
How crazy. $3 million, bro, of our money was spent on gerbils and hamsters, duking it out, coked up and stuff. Yeah. I could have used some of that juice.
The craziest part of that, I shared that story and I left a comment and I was like, we're asking the wrong question here. It's not that how much we spent on it. It's why they're spending that money on an anti-aggression pill. Because that's what it was for.
Oh, really?
They're studying an anti-aggression medication. So why do we need an anti-aggression medication? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, let's talk about that,
Yeah. Well, you know where that's going, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Because
all of us.
Exactly.
Define aggression.
Toxic.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Which, oh, by the way, if there's a very loud bang outside and if something blows up, they want the toxic dudes to go out there first and handle business.
Totally.
Right? But right now you're toxic until it's time to go bang.
But until then, take your anti-aggression.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. So I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know how hops ended up in beer? Like beer has hops in it.
A preservative.
And also they found in Belgium that, men with, obviously we men have testosterone and these men would get drunk and they would let their testosterone get out of control. And I agree, some dudes are idiots, and so they will drink and get stupid. And so they figured out that if they put hops in beer, it increases estrogen and makes them more docile. And that's how hops ended up in beer.
So this isn't even a new thing.
No.
Trying to control.
They've been trying to create an anti-aggression pill for men for years.
I mean, this is why, everybody sees in the news the whole Kellogg thing, and which is hilarious to me or anybody who knows anything about how Kellogg found, like the John Kellogg or whatever, how he founded the company. The company was founded on as Kellogg cereal being an anti-masturbatory.
Yeah.
And it was the same exact thing. It was this bland stuff that has whatever he made it. It was like cornmeal and whatever. Same thing. It reduces testosterone, increases estrogen, makes it so you don't want to masturbate.
Jeez, that's bad.
And that's what the Kellogg was founded on, and everybody knows that. So everybody up in arms right now about Kellogg, and it's like, well, that's what the company was founded on.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
literally
look at the
said,
source. Yeah, look at the source.
Yeah.
We spent all day yesterday talking with Dave about raising testosterone, you know, and who knows, maybe they've been more successful than we realize with all the food and everything to lower our test.
Bro, that was one of my concerns is that I often wonder, how do we know our they add fluoride to our water.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They add different, they add iodine to our salt, right? And okay, great. Our bodies need these things. How do we know there also isn't being dripped estrogen into our foods, into our water, right? I mean, how do we know?
Yeah.
We don't.
Right.
And so to me, it helps knowing that RFK is going to be overseeing that. And the dude is a jacked ass old man. And if anyone's going to see what's going on, it's him.
You mean you take him over Levine?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Did you see it before that picture that was posted?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that though. They are putting phytoestrogens in cosmetics, shampoos, soaps, like all this. It's like the soap that goes on your balls reduces testosterone.
Jeez.
And it's like, well, we've known that for 20 years, but nobody mentions it or cares because, well, the Dial soap is cheap.
Right.
And it's like, well, and then you go down the rabbit hole, right? And it's like, well, what do I actually need soap? It's actually better for your body to not soap it up all the time and get rid of your natural oils. And, that's why people's skin is so bad. And like, it's just the whole rabbit hole is kind of insane.
Yeah. As this whole vaccine thing was going on too, and afterwards, my stepdaughter is a microbiologist, specializes in plant genetics. And she literally, right here at ASU, in school, they were practicing putting vaccines into plants, literally at the molecular level. And so they've been trying to do that forever too, because it's like, well, wait a minute, why? Like, so much better than the rest of us what we all need to be vaccinated with that you're willing to put it in our spinach. Like, think about that. That's
scary, bro.
That's super scary because that's another, a big reason I think RFK needs to get in there and go after that one word, corruption.
Yeah.
Because why are all these things happening? Because they're getting fucking funded. They're getting paid. Yeah. The people with the money, the pharma want it. And it's like, it's not just healthier spinach. It's genetically modified spinach that has this crazy science pharma stuff in it.
Yeah. And ironically, they'll say it's for your health. But
of course,
my argument as an entrepreneur is I see how, like, when they put the vaccine out for COVID, all my businesses, I have 7 businesses, 6 of my 7 businesses are built on MRR, monthly recurring revenue. Yeah. I'm just a big fan of subscription recurring revenue, whether it's the franchise, my supplement company, apparel, whatever, everything is based on monthly MRR. And so as the pandemic's going on and then they're working on this vaccine, I'm just watching it through 2 lenses. 1, as an American, and 2, as an entrepreneur. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So they're taking away everything that can boost naturally your immune system. Don't go out in the sun. Don't go into the parks. They closed off parks. In Southern California, where I live, they closed off beaches. Gyms are shut down. So don't do anything social or physical fitness or get outside that's going to boost your immune system. So it's further reduce your immune system.
Just stay home and drink.
Stay home and drink.
Yeah.
And by doing that, and then now we're going to give you a vaccine to help you fight this thing. And oh, by the way, the vaccine only works is if you keep taking it over and over again. And I was like, man, I wish I had stock in Pfizer right
Speak
now.
of MRR.
Right.
Man.
That is monthly recurring revenue. Right?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, I'm not paying for it. Oh, yes, you are, baby girl. You are paying for it because you pay your taxes because the vaccine's free. No, I know it's free. But they take it out of all of our bank accounts, your check, your income, and then they give it to Pfizer and Moderna so that they can keep pumping out more of these vaccines.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Did we need to take vaccine every month to get rid of polio?
Yep.
Right. And especially everyone that got all the boosters seemingly got COVID the most amount of times. Too.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. I had a person that I worked with. They're like, that was the easiest vaccination I've ever done. I just drove through CVS and just stuck my arm out the window and they bloop. I was like, you got to think about that. Like, why is it so easy?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Convenience makes money. Look at Uber. Look at Grubhub. Like anything convenient. Look at Netflix. When convenience happens, more money is produced.
Yeah. Do you think going through that was maybe now like kind of a blessing in disguise, though?
Oh, I believe so.
Yeah.
We all needed that. I mean, I've got a good friend. You guys know Jason Ferrugia?
Yes.
Jason Ferrugia was hard left-leaning. And he lived in Santa Monica. And so, you know, Santa Monica especially is very hard left-leaning. And by the way, I'm neither left or right. I'm like middle of the road. I want to just live by the Constitution. I'm more of a libertarian. I say we make prostitution legal, we make drugs legal, tax the fuck out of it, keep the hookers from getting beat up by the pimps, and make sure they're tested for STDs. And by the way, you could never trust all the Johns anyway. So instead of the Johns driving off to some Motel 6, banging them and then killing them, you're better off having the John come to a brothel where he's tested and everyone's tested. We're making money, reduce everyone else's taxes because we're taxing the drugs, and the hookers and the pimps are gone and they're out of business. And then on the other side, it's her body. Who gives a shit? As far as I'm concerned, free choice, have at it. My body, my choice. But ironically, with the vaccine, it wasn't my body, my choice. So what the fuck is that about? So Jason Ferrugia, very left-leaning.
Yeah.
And so he and I would always butt heads. I'm like, hey, man, I get it, but there's like homeless people here in Santa Monica. When I come and visit you and work out with you, he goes, well, you know, homeless people, we got to take care of them. We're a community. We're all this. Well, during the pandemic, things got so bad. He came downstairs to walk his dog, and a homeless man was chasing him with a handful of poop, right? So he texted me, he goes, hey, B, I'm moving. I go, where to? He goes, Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas wasn't good enough. He moved to Florida. I go, hey, motherfucker, you voted for California to become this way, and now you're leaving. You came from New Jersey.
Right.
Fucked up Southern California. You and every goofball like you who like bleeds at the heart for all these retards. And then now you're leaving for Florida while I'm still going to stay.
Yeah.
Right?
Thanks.
But today he's all about RFK. He's all about Trump. And I'm not, again, I people go, man, you're really for Trump. I wouldn't have Trump raise my kids. I wouldn't want him to advise my kids on moral and ethics and whatever, because he's fucked up a lot in his life. But as a man who's going to run our country by the books and run it by the numbers, like he's the guy for the job, period. And so I share this because it is so easy for corruption to bleed into everything, and for us to, I don't know, the noose keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And so had the pandemic not happened, guys like Jason Ferrugia and many others that I know would not have had this awakening to realize that, you know what, I have to do what's great for our country and not just bleed at the heart for all these crackheads who are pooping everywhere.
Yeah. And it's great to say and like actually believe that. I think we are at a really big awakening.
Yeah.
We already, we mentioned it with Doge, like all those funny things that are going to come out. I've been laughing about that for like a decade or more, all these things they waste money on.
Yeah.
But as those things come out, that's going to get people like, oh, wait, this isn't a joke. This is real. Hold on. This is what we've been spending money on. Is this why we're trillions of dollars in debt? This, and then like Elon, he already has a leaderboard they're going to have at Doge, and they're going to show like the craziest things. And he said they're going to be 100% transparent what they're cutting and why, where they find all this craziness. That's going to be a huge awakening for people. Yeah. And then all the RFK stuff with the food, I think people are going to be like, dude, we've been lied to basically forever. Yeah. It hasn't really mattered for many decades if it was a Bush, it was Obama, it was Clinton, and another Bush, like all those things. Not too many crazy things changed. Now is like a major change. Yeah. And so like when you say Trump or I say Trump, to me, it's like not even about the guy with the golden hair. It's like major government like overspending and corruption and control, potentially leading to what you guys experienced over in the Soviet Union. Or we got a 6-pack of presidents this time. We got Trump, Elon, RFK, Gabbard, Vivek, all these people, but those are real people. They're killers in their own private industry that have decided, okay, I'm now going to come in and serve. The other side was the complete opposite. It was all the bureaucracy and all this stuff that was there. So when people say Trump, it's like, don't put like, Trump in your head. It's what he represents, and what he stands for.
Bingo.
Or it's the direction we're going.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely unapologetically excited about that.
Yeah. And let's be honest. If he was really like everything they said, right? Like, oh my God, he's Hitler, he's a tyrant, he's this, he's that. So whether you lost the election or not, wouldn't you still be banging those drums? Be like, oh my God, I'm such a great American. I'm worried for our country. Even though you guys didn't pick me, you guys picked a bad, evil person. Oh my, like all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, we'll get him next time. He's like cool. That was literally out of Kamala's mouth. We'll get him next time. That was to her staff. Great job, guys. We'll get him next time.
Wait a minute. I thought he was Hitler.
Right.
You know, like, dude, it just shows they're all like, they're just doing what they need to do. This isn't why I don't really get fired up about politics a lot. Cause when someone on the left says something insane, I'm like, well, that's their job. Like, I don't agree with it at all, but like, I'm not going to let it affect me and raise my cortisol too much. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Got to maintain that muscle mass. Can't have
like, come on. You know, we work
Got to stay anabolic.
Anabolic. We work way too hard for this shit. You know what I mean? Side note, like he always says like this, I shouldn't say this, but I always say I'm a classic hard gainer. So my entire life, work out, eat. And like, that's my whole thing. Yeah. So I need to keep that going.
Fuck yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'd like to kind of like switch into like how you got into business.
Yeah.
Because I've been learning a lot from you about entrepreneurship and business and stuff for years. So thank you for that. Yeah, I got your book right here. I actually DM'd you back in the day when I read this, specifically when you were talking about how you kind of had I don't think it was a heart attack, but you kind of had like your body shut down type thing.
Panic attack. Yeah. That I thought was a heart attack, bro. So I'm 50 years old now. So I was 38 years old, 12 years ago.
Okay.
I had a panic attack so bad, literally crippled me, dropped me to my knees. My both arms are tingling, tunnel vision, my heart's racing. I hear the thug lug of my blood pumping in my ears, sweating profusely. And I remember thinking like, oh shit. I remember somewhere in first aid class, remembering like if your arm's tingling or something, you're having a heart attack. So I'm like, I'm really having a heart attack. Both arms are tingling, right? So I remember I accepted death so quickly. I was like, fuck, I guess this is how I go. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed, trying to, build Fit Body Bootcamp and build all my businesses. But I felt so much sadness for two things. One, who's going to walk Chloe down the aisle? At the time, she was 6 years old. And then Chloe's my daughter. And then who's going to teach Andrew, who was 8 years old at the time, to be a modern day knight? Like I always felt like, and I read this book when Andrew was born, Raising a Modern Day Knight. And I was like, all right, I'm going to raise my son this way. So who's going to teach him to be a modern day knight? And I felt so much sadness for them. Thankfully, it wasn't a heart attack. It was a panic attack. Went to the doctor the next morning. They cleared me. Your heart's good. However, it seems like you had a panic attack. And you need to do something about it. And that's when I started to transform into, in the book, what I call my higher self, my 2.0 self.
Yeah, that's wild. So you were building Fit Body then. Like how far into it were you?
So Fit Body is about 15 years old. So that happened 12 years. So I was 3 years into building Fit Body, right? So credit cards are maxed out. And it wasn't like the black card that I have now. It was like a Visa and a MasterCard that were maxed out.
Yeah, there's no more.
Yeah. They had limits. One had like a $7,000 limit. One had a $15,000 limit, maxed out. Right. And then had refinanced the house, right, to pull money out on the house to grow Fit Body. And this as entrepreneurs, anytime you start making a plan, here's how we're going to grow. Here's how much we're going to spend on marketing. Here's how much on staff, operational cost, rent for the little office that we're going to rent. You go, okay, I got enough money for 6 months. And then as soon as you launch, the like starting gun goes off.
1 month.
1 month. 1 month.
Right.
You need more money and you did not have anything. Mathematically, it was all fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And so I share that with you because that's exactly what happened to me. And, you keep it all bottled up and inside. And then I started to cut corners from my workout, from my sleep, because I'm like, well, I just have to keep grinding. And I heard Tim Grover say this one time at our Fit Body Bootcamp World Conference. We hired him to speak there. And, he talked about, he goes, I love people who grind. He goes, but if you grind anything, he goes, take a rock and just grind it for a long enough time. What do you get? I'm like in the backstage. I'm like, dust. I'm like, oh my God, I grounded myself into dust. You shouldn't grind. And so anyway, that really put me down a wrong path, man. 3 years into growing Fit Body Bootcamp in massive debt, realizing that the next one might be a heart attack, according to that doctor. He's like, this wasn't one, but the next one could be. And so I had to change things, and I did. And if you want to go down that path, more than happy to answer any questions you got.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, one, thankfully that it worked out physically, obviously. But I would love to know, like, financially what you did at that point, because that happens to, it's happened to me. It's happened to like everybody. Yeah. So like, what did you do then when the back is against the wall, and now health scare? The health scare doesn't make the debt go away either, So what did you change then to start to get back on track?
Yeah, very good question. So at that point, I did a little self-inventory. So the doctor put me on Xanax. I was 4 days on Xanax, and I was like, okay, I have zero feeling of any kind of anxiety.
Yeah.
But I also have zero desire to work. And so this is not good for someone who's in debt trying to build a big company, right? And so I called the doc. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to take the Xanax. What do you got? What else? What other drugs do you got for me, right? I thought that was the answer. Give me drugs to fight off the anxiety while I can keep grinding.
Right.
And he goes, I got no other drugs. Anything I put you on is going to probably make you feel lethargic and you're not going to have any urgency, but you won't feel anxious either. I'm like, well, this can't work. I go, what's my alternative? He goes, talk therapy. I go, talk therapy is for broken people. I don't need a therapist. Like, he goes, a good therapist can give you tools to deal with your anxiety. I'm like, all right, cool, done. So I went and found a good therapist. His name is Kevin Downing. He's in Brea, California. And he taught me something. He taught me this. He says, anxiety is anticipation of future pain.
Okay.
And then I go, okay, Kevin. By the way, being type A, like all of us here, I'm like, hey, Kevin, nice to meet you. I'm Bedros. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in debt. I need to build this company into a big multi-million-dollar company and then one day sell it and have a big $100 million exit. And he just starts laughing. He goes, I get a whole bunch of guys just like you. He goes, they could be, first responders. They could be entrepreneurs. They could be, special forces from the military. You guys are all cut from the same cloth. I'm like, cool. So how long is it going to take for you to fix me? Right. And he goes, first of all, number one, you're not broken. Number two, it'll take us about 4 weeks. Number three, you just need some tools. And I was like, well, what's the one thing that's going to stop this anxiety? He goes, there is no one thing, but if I give you a handful of tools, one thing's going to help 10%, one thing's going to help 20%, one thing's going to help 50%. Now you'll have less anxiety. Got it. So he tells me anxiety is anticipation of future pain. I was like, oh shit, he's right. When I was in debt with credit cards and a foreclosed home, all you're thinking is, if I can't pay off these bills fast enough, if I'm not getting more money coming in than going out, you anticipate yourself laying on your parents' couch with your family, right? Looking at your family and going, this is not how I anticipated things to be, right? And so that was the anticipation of future pain. I also had a business partner in Fit Body Bootcamp back then. Awesome human being, great guy. No one made me laugh as hard as him. He's made me laugh so hard that I've literally spat out water. One time for my birthday, I got a text from him. It was a video. And I'm like, what the fuck? Looks like a little happy face. And I play the video. And as he zooms the video out, like takes the camera out, I realize it is the head of his penis. And he's taken a marker and he's drawn 2 eyes on it. And he's squeezing the head and making the pee hole talk. He's like, hi, Bedros. I hear it's your birthday. Just want to wish you a happy birthday, big guy.
Was his name Ray Cash?
No, it wasn't Ray Cash. Ray. So apparently I like weirdos like that because years later, Ray becomes our instructor our lead instructor for the project, right? Yeah. And he's got this, see, now we're going off a tangent, so you got to bring me back. But Ray, so that guy's name was Steve Hockman, awesome human being. Sure. But we didn't do well as entrepreneurs together. And there was a conversation that I was needing to have with him, which was, hey, man, one of us need to leave the company. We're friends. We need to figure out who needs to leave the company. But I kept kicking that can down the road. And I would hear his Corvette. He had this awesome Corvette Grand Sport. I would hear his Corvette driving up to our little headquarters at the time. And my heart would start racing and my palms would get sweaty. At the time, I didn't realize this is anxiety.
Yeah.
I was just like, I got to grind, but I'm feeling a certain way. Oh my God, he's going to come into the front door. He's going to start being a bull in a china closet, but he's also funny. So anyway, but going back to Ray Cash Care, every time we do the project kicks off at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, and then we secure it at 5 p.m. on Thursday, hence the 75 hours. Ray had this ritual where he would strip down naked. So 12 noon on Tuesday. So remember, at 1 p.m. we pick up the candidates, we hood them, put them in an unmarked van, drive them to my gym, and we just torture them for 75 hours. That's what the project is.
Yeah.
But at 12 noon, as we're all getting ready, getting our pump on, getting all this extra energy out, working out in the gym, Ray would just strip down, and then he started doing cartwheels up and down the turf, cartwheels, like his dong just swinging all across, right? And he would do this every class. The only class he didn't do this in, we had a guy die. And so we made sure he continued on to do this.
So it's his fault.
Yeah. Ray technically has killed someone. Someone did die. He had an enlarged heart. No one knew. The autopsy report said it. He could have been running a marathon that day and
for sure
and killed himself. But I share this with you that I am surrounded by weirdos who like to use their body parts as tools.
But I think we've all gotten that message from Ray.
Ray's such a cool dude. But going back to this, anxiety is anticipation of future pain. There was so many conversations I was wanting to have, needing to have, should have had, did not have. And so you're always anticipating something going wrong. And so you're like, I'm going to go, money's not going to work out. Relationship's not going to work out. The situation with my business partner is not going to work out. The debt collectors are going to come and get me. That's not going to work out. So, all right. So then he teaches me action alleviates anxiety. which is go have the conversation, solve the problem, do the things you need to do, right?
Totally.
And so once I learned those two things, I realized what I need to do is go figure out what is taking money out of my company right now. We had 2 consultants that we had hired. We were paying $22,000 a month to these consultants. I realized they really weren't adding much value. And so I had to have a conversation with them and say, hey, even though I signed a 12-month agreement with you guys, we're 4 months in, you guys aren't adding value. 22 grand a month is a lot of money. Going to have to part ways. So I went and had that conversation. Went and had the conversation with Steve, my business partner, about parting ways. Either you go or I go, but one of us have to go. Otherwise, this ship's going to go down. Had that conversation. It wasn't fun, but we had it. He ended up going, and I ended up buying him out in Fit Body Bootcamp, which is how I ended up the founder and CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. But I share this with you because those conversations weren't fun or easy to have. I had to go to some of my creditors and ask for an extension, right? They weren't fun, but those are the things you got to do. And then I asked myself, what else is leading to this anxiety? Well, the things that actually helped alleviate my anxiety were sleeping, eating right, and working out. I soon found myself, cutting corners on my workouts, eating high carbohydrate, high fat foods because I was emotional and stress eating. And then I wasn't sleeping at night because I was taking so much Adderall and coffee and energy drinks in the morning. And then at night, I would take handfuls of Vicodin and NyQuil to fall asleep. And I realized I wake up groggy. So, I'm just juggling all this energy, no energy. Yep. And so I started to course correct on the things and have the conversations that I needed to have, control the budget, and then said, what is going to work with Fit Body Bootcamp? Maybe I just need to get owners who already have locations to buy a second one instead of trying to get new owners on board. So when your life flashes before your eyes, when you're having a panic attack and thinking you're having a heart attack, the pain is so great that you're willing to go see a therapist, have the tough conversations with your business partner, with the creditors, with your employees. I knew what I had to do months building up to that.
Sure.
But I didn't, because as humans, we're so good at avoiding the conversations, at escaping from those realities of burying our head in the sand. And I've got this theory that I've worked on. People think that the worst place to be in life is rock bottom. You always hear about a drunk saying, damn, man, when I hit rock bottom, that's when things changed.
Right.
When in reality, there's a worse place than rock bottom. If this tabletop is rock bottom, hovering inches above it for years at a time is the worst place, because this is where you have to tell a lot of lies. You have to, not only to yourself, to your family, to the people you love, to the people you respect. You are borrowing from Peter to pay to Paul. You are pretending like everything's okay. Like hovering just above rock bottom is more stressful than hitting rock bottom and then saying, all right, I surrender. What do I do? The thing we are good at as humans, and especially men, is we hover right above rock bottom for so fucking long until we think about ending our own lives. And I've been there. I've sat in my truck thinking, like, if I could end my life this way, my kids won't be as traumatized. Like, imagine thinking that, right? And I share that with you because at some point you have to hit rock bottom. The rock bottom for me was that panic attack that I thought was a heart attack. And so, but I realized I spent years hovering right above that rock bottom, man. And so if any dude's listening to this and you're having to tell a lot of lies to yourself and to others, and hey, it's going to be okay, we're going to financially figure it out, I know this will work out fine. No, I'll have the money for you soon. Pretty soon I'll start working out. If I just can eat 4 more bagels with cream cheese tonight, tomorrow night will be different. Like, that was my MO, man. I'd break a bagel in half. I wouldn't even slice it. I'd break it in half, dip it in Philadelphia cream cheese and eat it. And just like stress eat at 10 o'clock at night, right?
Pretzels.
Yeah. Right.
Fucking pretzels for me.
Yeah. Like carbs and fat, any kind of carbs and fat together, I would just mow down. Yeah. But I share this with you is because when I had that defining moment of hitting rock bottom, there's this clarity that comes and you're like, man, if I have to work with a therapist, I'll work with a therapist. If I have to have these conversations, I'll have these conversations. As it turns out, if the business has to collapse while I go get a great workout in, that's what has to happen. And as I got better workouts in and I started to gain my self-respect back and then start closing down the leakage of money with those 2 consultants and my business partner, et cetera, then you see light at the end of the tunnel. And then that gives you hope. And a man that has hope does not think about ending his life. And you start walking closer to the light because it gives you more hope. And then soon you realize, man, we're an Inc. 500 company, Entrepreneur Magazine's top 200 franchises. And all that was literally 4 years later. In 4 years, I turned that company around Sounds like a long time, but 4 years for a big company is not a long time.
Right.
Turned it around, and then we hit all those accolades, and today we're one of the fastest growing fitness franchises on the planet.
Awesome.
Yeah. I want to highlight.
You've earned it.
Yeah, fucking earned it. That's for sure.
I want to highlight something too that some of the guys listening might not have picked up on, but when you had the panic attack, you said you went to the doctor the next day.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect like analogy for that hovering, right?
Yeah.
Because you're still pushing it off.
Yep.
You're still like,
I should have gone that
fuck,
morning.
I think I just had a heart attack. I'll go in the morning. Like if that's not a perfect analogy for just hovering on that, hovering at that rock bottom.
Then let me be even more honest with you. I had no plans on going to the doctor. When I told someone what had happened to me, they're like, dude, you got to go to the doctor. I'm like, no. They're like, no, I'm taking you to the doctor. I'm like, all right, well, let's go tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what we do. I still wanted to hover.
Yep.
Right? Like, could you imagine? I was like, well, I dodged a heart attack. I'm good.
I'm good now.
Yeah.
Let's keep grinding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I pushed through. It's fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. It's crazy. And I realize now in hindsight, we all know the answer. We all know the answer. We just have to hit rock bottom. We have to, if you can just stop hovering inches above rock bottom and just hit rock bottom, sooner you'll create the outcome. And I'll give this is the example I gave someone. A mom who's got like 2 young sons, it's actually a true story. This is why I use this, but I'm not going to mention names. A mom that's got an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old son whose husband is abusive, but who's a outstanding member of the community. And therefore, no one would ever suspect that he's abusive. I'm talking physically abusive, pushing the kids down the staircase, those kids being bruised up and banged up to the point where when she had enough for years, we would notice things. And I would approach her and talk to her like, hey, is everything okay? She'd go, no, everything's fine. This bruise is just something I bumped into the wall. Oh, what happened to little Bobby there is just, he was mountain biking and he fell.
Right.
Until one day, things got really bad. And then all of a sudden, we always hear this, the abused wife with kids, like she says, enough is enough. While the husband's at work, she leaves.
Yep.
Right? Well, how long was she hovering?
Mm-hmm.
Years, maybe.
Years.
Yeah.
Years, to the point where me and two of my homies who actually were project instructors, one of them being a former SWAT sniper and the other one being the MMA guy, we went there with our pistols and a moving truck. As soon as he left for work, we moved her out of that house so quick. And we knew what he does for a living, and he carries an AR in the back of his car because of what he does for a living. Mm-hmm. And so I share that with you because that didn't have to go down that way.
Yep.
We were all prepared for a gunfight, and it didn't have to go down that way had she made that decision years earlier for herself and the safety of her kids, right? But we all just tend to hover right above rock bottom for so long, and I don't know why, but it's just the human condition is to do that.
Mm-hmm. You nailed I think one of the most important things, which is action. You said action alleviates anxiety. There's an example I give all the time, but even before that, like you see what's on my wristband is action over words. Like that's our motto, you know, earn it all. Like that's, if you want it, you have to earn it. And that requires action. Yeah. One of the things that I like to tell my story for people when it comes to action is before all of this, after the Navy, I worked in, Lockheed Martin, worked for them for 10 years. I was essentially a flight test control engineer on fighter jets, which means I had my name on a fighter jet and I had a 24/7 multiple crews of engineers and all sorts of active duty forces and civilians and people that work on these things. It was a stealth fighter. It did a lot of cool shit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I mentioned that because with that became there was a lot of pressure. Like some of the classified missions we did, we had the vice president at the time, which was Biden then, watching remotely to see if we were successful. And we're talking $1 billion of assets on the line.
Yeah.
My name on the jet. I was the last guy to sign it before the pilot took it. If something happened, the first person they go look at, well, fucking who said the plane was good? You know,
yeah. You're getting drug tested.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I mentioned that because I thrive in that environment because of action.
Yeah.
And so what I tell people is whenever you're struggling with whatever, say you're stressed about a relationship or the business or whatever, the faster you can start to try to solve that problem, the faster all that little emotion and that stuff leaves. Because now you're focused on trying to fix it.
Yeah.
So when you're hovering, it's probably inaction. You need that bottom to make you force yourself to get to action.
Yeah.
So if you're hovering, instead of hitting rock bottom, because not everyone survives rock bottom,
right?
Unfortunately. So while you're hovering, it's like, dude, if you can just make yourself just take some action to have that conversation, to, whatever it is, go after the bills a different way. Like find these things that need to be cut, like Doge in the government now.
Yep.
It's action over words. You have to do action. And that also has really helped me on my entrepreneur journey when I'm like down in the dumps and like shit's bad. And especially like we started in 2017 as earn your booze.
Yep.
Like that was our thing, is work hard, play hard. And we still do that because a lot of people that choose to drink, we still want to help them get healthy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like won't do that because they say chicken, broccoli, rice, no booze. Well, people can't usually just get there on day one, you know, and they need to be led to understand, like you get some physical and some mental wins, and now you're probably going to drink less because your life is just more awesome,
right.
You know, but along the way, like when we're going through this, like when COVID ruined the Earn Your Booze business, because it was essentially all event based, all the venues shut down, the sponsorships pulled their money and all that, we had to go do apparel. But then everybody else is doing apparel. Yeah. You know, that was not easy.
That's a tough industry.
I refied my house at that point and spent fucking all of it just to break even for 2 years. Yeah. Horrible. But the thing that kept helping me was like, well, if I sit here, I know we're screwed. And I have to keep taking action. So I love that you said that action alleviates anxiety. It's so true. And it's, you know, rang true for me for many years.
Yeah. I think for a lot of guys too, that's why physical fitness is such a catalyst for a lot of almost every story. At some point, there's some sort of physical, you know, something.
1,000%.
I started running. I started working out. Whatever. And because that's the fastest and easiest way to go in any direction, right? It's like, well, I went to the gym today, so I got to win. Yeah. So then the next win and the next win and the next win. And I think that's the you know, if somebody is struggling or thinking about, well, I am hovering right now, how do I do it? Physical fitness is almost a surefire way to go in a direction.
Bro, you are so right. One thing I always talk about on my show is I say fitness is the gateway drug. Mm-hmm. And they go, the gateway drug to what? I go, a better relationship, to being a better father, to making more money, to connecting with faith. To like, what do you mean? I can make more money if I'm... Yes, because the moment you start getting fit, that means you, for a period of time, have been eating well, getting your sleep, getting your workouts in consistently, because we all know one great workout with Ronnie Coleman or fucking Phil Heath or whoever is not going to make us look like them. It's going to be a bunch of workouts and a dialed in diet program and maybe some gear and other things that are going to get you squared away. Yeah. Right. But the point I'm making is the same things: commitment, consistency, delayed gratification, discipline are the same things you need for a great marriage, to become a loving father, a great business partner, successful as an entrepreneur. And so all those things you can develop in the gym. And as a byproduct, when you look at the outcome in the mirror, you're like, man, I really love the guy in the mirror. He's got abs. He kept his promises every morning to himself to go to the gym. He stacked a whole bunch of wins over so many months or years. Your reputation with yourself is so high, and all confidence is your reputation. Your credit score with yourself is your reputation, and your reputation is your confidence. And so you show me someone who's fat, sloppy, and out of shape, and I will show you someone that's got a fat, sloppy, out of shape marriage, business, bank account, relationship with their kids, all of it.
Yeah, and as far as like making more money, like it really improves your circle too. Because if you work on yourself and you get into great shape, let's say you do start sloppy, but then you turn into the Hulk or whatever. Chances are you're going to be around more Hulk-like people. And those people are disciplined. Those people are working on themselves. Those people are probably doing better in business. So now you're just kind of leveling everything up. You know, you're not going to stay around those people after a while.
I really like how you put that as your personal reputation, because a lot of guys, you know, myself included, I never looked at my relationship with myself as part of reputation until recently, until the last 5 years. And it's like, oh, wait. Like if I want a better reputation among men, right? I need better reputation with me first. And I think that's such a good way to put it. I've actually never heard somebody say personal reputation before.
Like if I want respect from you guys, I have to have self-respect first. Before I could ask for or command respect from anyone else around me. It's the respect that I have for myself, the reputation I have for myself. Absolutely.
That's what I love about what you do with MDK. And like we have a men's retreat called True North. We do up in Sedona every quarter.
Beautiful place.
Dude, it's so great because I think one of the coolest things for me is to see a guy unlock, because so many men these days, like for whatever reason, they don't know how to be a man, or they don't think they're allowed to. They're not really sure of themselves. And when they show up kind of like that and they go, oh, no, actually, there is more to this. To me, that's like the coolest reward.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's so much fun. But a lot of times it does take getting out of your physical environment to leave your mental environment, you know? Yeah. So like, it's great we do online coaching, of course, and it's great to go to the gym and all that. But I think really like guys that need a massive upgrade or a massive change, pull yourself out.
Yes.
Go somewhere completely different, around guys you've never seen in person before. Go to your thing, go to our thing, go somewhere completely different if you want to go to a different place.
Yeah. Well, think about how any great hero movie is made. It's the hero's journey, what Joseph Campbell has coined.
Yeah.
Right. And the hero's journey, that every movie is like, okay, the guy is downtrodden. He's out. Like maybe he was a badass at some point, but then things didn't work out. You know, he got a divorce. He's addicted to booze and he's just a local nobody. But then, you know, motorcycle gang comes into his town. And so, you know, he goes on this journey and he comes back around to solve the problem with the motorcycle gang. Like any great hero movie is the hero's journey of you're at a low point, you leave home base and go on the journey of self-discovery, of self-mastery.
Yeah.
And then you come back around with higher levels of self-understanding and awareness and ability to solve the problem. And just before the problem is solved, you have one more big dip. And then the hero emerges, right? It is the rise of the phoenix from the ashes. That is the hero's journey. And that's what we have to do. Like when people go, I can't do the MDK project here at home. You don't have a curriculum. No, you're home. You're surrounded by losers. We need to pluck you out because proximity is power. So when you have your True North program in Sedona and I come to it, I am leaving my community of losers that have caused me, or no, I'm not going to say that. I have caused myself to be a loser. They have reinforced the desire for me to be a loser. So I have to leave that, go on the journey to Sedona, change, leave my 1.0 self there in the middle of the fucking desert, and then come back as a new man. That is the hero's journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on, like you say, faith, right? Yeah. Spirituality. I think that's one that a lot of men ignore. They go after fitness first, or they go after money, you know, and maybe a relationship next, you know, those kind of things.
They're all tangible, those things. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. But I really think it's the major flex is to have a higher connection with a higher power.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of curious what it takes guys to admit that and let themselves kind of like feel that a bit. So that's one of the pillars that we do at True North is spirituality. So we do breath work and we talk about God and Jesus and all these kind of things. You don't have to be a Christian, but I do think there's a lot to be said about knowing a creator or knowing a higher power, you know? So what would you say to guys that are kind of still resistant to that?
Well, you know, at the project, we talk about the 4 F-bombs: faith, family, fitness, and finances, to give a man fulfillment, to get that 5th F-bomb. Because all men are looking for fulfillment. Another word for fulfillment is meaning. Yet another word is purpose, right? When a man has purpose, mission, and he is focused, he will not do anything stupid to himself. And where do we get fulfillment from? Faith, family, fitness, and finances. Those things squared away. So to me, I can prove that there's a higher power, because if all of a sudden you and I decided to take you outside, hang you off the balcony by your legs, you're like, Justin, this is it. And if you weren't a man of faith, you would go, oh God. Anytime we're faced with a life or death situation, you're about to crash, someone pulls a gun out on you, instinctively we all yell out, oh God. Like, we yell out literally to a higher power, right? You've heard the most atheist of all do that. And so we all, I think, instinctively know there's a higher power. Now, whether it's a God, a Jesus, an Allah, Buddha, you know, universal consciousness, the Brahman, whatever you want to call it. I do believe there's a higher power. I do believe that there's a creator, and we all know that that creator is within. Yet another way you know that is because your conscience which is the purest, most authentic voice of God or your creator, is within you. In other words, if I'm like, ooh, I like this mug here, which actually I do, this mug that has like the handle on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, when Justin ain't looking, I'm just going to take this mug, right? I'm just going to steal it.
Thing out,
does it weigh like 1,000,000 pounds?
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit! Bro, there's like Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Isn't that cool?
How much does this weigh?
I think it's 18 pounds.
Yeah,
Get out of it.
Yeah.
It's just such a
So
Jiminy.
we're sitting here with sitting here with a weapon if you need it,
all right, got
that's
to
a
work
test
out for
you
the day.
passed.
Yeah. That is great, man. But yeah, could you imagine? So if I'm like, you know what? I'm going to steal this when he's not looking.
Yeah.
Now, because I like it, it looks cool. By the way, it's a rad thing, and I would never steal it in case it goes missing. It's one of them, not me. But as I'm stealing it, like I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I did this. I just feel like a bad person. That is conscience.
Yes.
That is conscience. That is the highest, most purest form of God speaking within me. And we all have our conscience within us that speaks. It knows what true north is. It's just we tend to want to stifle it and shut it down. It's also known as radiance. And we do this by saying, well, by justifying. I'm sure he's got a whole bunch of those. He wouldn't mind this missing. Plus, like, I came and I spoke. Like, we can justify it. We can escape from it by saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go have a couple of drinks real quick and not think about that, or I'm gonna go watch TV, or I'm gonna scroll through social media. There's so many ways to escape conscience, but when we are in solitude, when we're quiet, conscience speaks to us. God, the higher power, the universal consciousness speaks to us, and we have to listen. If we don't, guess what happens next? The man above, or the Brahman above, says, here's a little bit of depression, here's a little bit of anxiety, here's a little bit of feeling of overwhelm. If you're feeling depressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, odds are you are living incongruently with the man or the woman that you want to be. Your conscience knows better, and consciousness, the higher power, is speaking to you. You constantly ignore it. The way God grabs Justin by the shoulders and shakes him and says, pay attention, is by giving you anxiety and the sense of depression. And it's that irritableness inside. It's like, I got to do something. But then we end up drinking it away, watching it away, snorting it away, smoking it away. Or you could just surrender and be like, what do I do? Let me go back to the gym, get realigned, connect with my homies, hold me accountable. What do I do next? Tell me with your outside eyes. I trust you guys. What do you guys see that I can improve? Those are hard things to ask for. But as men, we're tribal, and we need to do that for one another. But instead, we go in solitude and then escape and avoid the realities, bury our head in the sand until we're hovering so much over the rock bottom until we crash one day.
There's I can't remember who said it, but it was something like this. Nobody dies of old age as an atheist. So, and whether it's, dying of old age or hitting rock bottom and right at that last breath, nobody's an atheist.
You are true.
And that's how I know there's a God.
Well, it's funny you say that. So Joseph Campbell, who wrote an amazing book called The Power of Myth, he spent his entire life studying religion and then debunking it. On his deathbed, he asked his wife, please bring that crucifix. And he held the crucifix as he died.
Really?
Do with that what you want.
That's powerful. Yeah.
It's a true story. That's a great book too, by the way, The Power of Myth.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I think that's kind of the real flex. Like when I meet a new person, or I see a guy online, that's, in great shape, or he's a special ops guy or whatever, something like that. Like when you see they also have that squared away, I'm like, okay, now this guy probably has more to share than just being jacked or being a great shooter or something like that. So I really think, and I really like that you guys do that, the 4 leading to the 5th F. And that's what we mean too. When you say earn it all, and I think that's the mentality that everyone needs to take forward. Whether Trump or Kamala had won, it doesn't fucking matter. Like if you work on that, squaring away your whole life, I mean, you can't really.
It's so funny you say that too, bro. Like the night before the election, I put up a post on Instagram, and within seconds it went viral. Like within seconds, it was the silliest little post I knocked out real quick. It was like it wasn't no picture, no video. I just wrote a thing and then posted it. And I said, here's what I'm going to do if Kamala wins. I'm going to wake up early tomorrow, work out, eat right, serve people, and create the most awesome content for you guys. Here's what I'm going to do if Trump wins. I'm going to wake up early tomorrow, work out, eat right, create awesome content for you guys, and be the most badass. Same thing, right? it was like 5,000% more likes and shares and views and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, really? It took some knucklehead to say that to you for you to realize, like, no matter who wins, like tomorrow you wake up and you just keep being your best self.
Yeah. I think that's because people are starving for real and they're starving for truth. And something like that is so simple. Like we do a perfect week challenge with our people, like all the things we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Exercise, water, sleep, sun, all those things. But people, that was so simple. And I think that's why I resonated with people, because they're like, okay, this guy's not trying to blow smoke up my butt or sell me something or get me to think a certain way, to vote a certain way, or he's not trying to manipulate my mind or anything. He's just saying the truth. And I think that's probably why it took off, because people are starving for more truth and more real people out there.
The truth is undeniable.
Yeah.
They may fight it because they don't like hearing it, but it is undeniable. We all know the truth when we see it. We may not like it. It might hurt us. We may want to justify, like, call you a racist and whatever the hell they want to call you, but the truth is undeniable.
Yeah. So I got one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you're 50 years old now.
I am.
Lived an incredible life so far. Like probably not even halfway. What would you like to tell people that you've learned? And I'm not going to try to give you any topic or category. What's just something you want to share today?
Listen, man, as someone who's an immigrant to this country and came from a communist country, the Soviet Union, what I didn't share here with you is that I was also molested by two older boys between the ages of 4 and 6. And when you're molested or had any kind of sexual, physical, mental, emotional abuse, the part of your brain that lights up during a CAT scan is the fight or flight. And I spent my entire life all the way to age 39, because remember I said I found Kevin Downing, that therapist, and he said in 4 weeks he'd give me tools to deal with my anxiety. Sadly, it didn't, well, actually, ideally, thankfully, it didn't end with 4 weeks. Those 4 weeks led to 15 months of therapy with him on a weekly basis, because on the 4th week, that old guy, that son of a bitch, built such great, I love that guy. I've sent him 105 patients, clients, customers, whatever they're called, since working with him. But Kevin, on that 4th session, said, hey, Bedros, is there anything else you want to talk about now that you know how to manage and handle your anxiety and stress? I said, no, everything's fine. He goes, there's nothing, not even like your parents. Everyone's parents screwed them up. I go, my dad, he's a former communist, so he'd slap me around a lot and beat me a lot. But my mom would usually throw herself in between us, and so I was fine, just, bruised and battered. But quite honestly, the beatings that my dad gave me, Kevin, were nothing, paled in comparison to what happened to me as a kid. Why I threw that out there, I have no idea. And then he goes, why? What happened? And I just started bawling and crying. And that's when I told him that I was molested. I'd never told anyone, man. Kept that to myself, because I thought, like, you would think that I'm gross, I'm sick, that what if I become a predator, right? I remember thinking to myself, and I had a game plan. If I ever think about doing anything like that, I'm going to grab my Glock 19, boom, end it. Like, that's the agreement that I had with myself. And so I'm walking through life this way, feeling unlovable, unworthy, like I'm broken, like I'm a piece of shit, that I'm gross. And so I spent 15 months with Kevin kind of dismantling that. And I share this with you. So the big takeaway with the audience is this, that understand that your life is like a storybook. And probably the first 20 years, maybe I would say, the first 20 years, others start writing your story, like these two older boys who molested me wrote several few paragraphs in my pages of how I was going to feel about myself in terms of self-worth and self-love. My dad beating me, right? Probably wrote some things. My mom saying, you're always chunky and clumsy and fat, right? That probably wrote some pages in my storybook. And you grew up thinking that I'm just to be thrown away, and I'm gross, I'm not worthy, and people can take advantage of me, and that's okay, because I'm not a good person anyway, and I'm always going to be fat and out of shape, which is why I always do the 6-week fitness challenges, all types of rock climbing and surfing and jujitsu and MMA and whatever, because I'm still trying to prove something to my younger self. But I share this with you because at some point, grandparents, even aunts and uncles, they'll tell you, watch out, don't start that business. Your uncle tried to start that business and he failed, and we were in debt, and we almost divorced, and I lived through the Great Depression. You don't know what it's like. So save your money and don't take risks, take it easy. So everyone's writing in your life's storybook. What we forget that at some point we can take the pen back, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of pages left that you can start rewriting, and the story ends this way. And when I took that pen back at the age of 39, thanks to Kevin, he literally said, he gave me the first sentence. when I was sick, when you were, I wrote I'm getting emotional. I wrote a letter. He made me write a letter. He asked me to write a letter to my younger self. Bedros, between the ages of 4 and 6 years old, you were molested by 2 older boys. But today, ... That was the starting sentence. And I still have to close my eyes when I say that sentence because I'll break down crying and I don't want to. It took me 4 weeks to write an 11-page letter to my younger self. And I realized as I'm writing, like, oh my God, I get to rewrite that. Because then as I rewrote that story, like today you own 7 companies and you're like a great dude. You're like top 10 donators to Shriners Children's Hospital. You've bought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of toys between myself and Craig Ballantyne for Toys for Tots. You employ this many people. Your sister never has to work again. Mom and dad have a living, whatever, right? And then, oh, by the way, you also have this book in you and that book in you and that book. So I started to write what the future is going to look like. Like, take the pen back, start filling out those pages because you are not the person that they told you are. Because once we start believing the story that they told us, then we start acting like the person that they told us that we are. And we start looking for evidence in real life to reinforce that belief system, right?
Yeah.
So if they're like, oh man, you're not a likable person. So then Justin goes, hey, Bedros, how are you? And I go, good. And you go, oh, cool. In my head, I'm like, oh, he could have been more enthusiastic about that. Obviously, he knows I'm not a likable person. And therefore, like, I will literally turn a regular, oh, cool, to see, Justin hates me too, right? Because I'm trying to find evidence in the real world.
Right.
Now I just find evidence in the real world that I'm fucking awesome. All I do, everywhere I walk, I'm like, oh, he thinks I'm awesome. You think, everyone thinks, if there's someone behind this fucking wall, they think I'm awesome too, right? Because that's how I've written the story moving forward. And everyone needs to take the fucking pen back and understand there's so many beautiful empty pages left and you get to write how the story ends.
Man, that is the most beautiful ending I've heard. And I think it's so important for people to realize that it is on you and you can rewrite your story.
Fuck yeah.
Like, I think that's kind of the whole moral of this whole podcast.
Moral of the story.
It's moral of the story. Man, well, Bedros, thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask people to share this, not because we want to grow our thing, because this conversation should and will help many, many people.
Thank you.
So that's all we ask is just to share the show and just help spread the good word. So
appreciate the opportunity, guys.
Dude, absolutely.